comfortable in my new chair.
We are ready.
All right, welcome everyone. Calling this meeting to order. It is exactly 5 p.m. Can we get a roll call, please? Well, let me do it. Kaylin, I am here.
I'm ready.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, technical difficulty. Trustee Gallagher,
Here.
Trustee Aerosmith,
Here.
Trustee Brown,
Here.
Trustee Goitia,
Here.
Trustee Verich.
All right, we are all here. 1C is adoption of closed session agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion by Christina, second by Stacy. Any discussion? Seeing none, can we please have another roll call? Vote.
Trustee Gallagher,
Aye.
Trustee Aerosmith,
Aye.
Trustee Brown,
Aye.
Trustee Goitia,
Aye.
Trustee Verich.
Aye.
All right, so with a 5-0 vote, it passes. The items are disclosed on the agenda. I'm checking to see if we have any digital blue cards this evening on the topics, which we do not. So at this point, the board will move to, or not move, we'll just adjourn to closed session, and we expect to be back right around 6 p.m. Thank you. Hi, everyone. We're coming back from closed session. We're going to be about 5 more minutes, so we'll get started right around 6:10 p.m. Thanks for your patience. All right, I think we're all here, so let's go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. It is 6:11 p.m. and the board is returning from closed session where we did not take any action. Just a quick note about this meeting. It is being live streamed on the internet. Because members of the board are joining via teleconference, all votes tonight are going to be recorded via a roll call. While there's no physical location available for the public to join due to the coronavirus pandemic, members of the public may submit a request to speak through the public comment card, which is available on the district's website and in board docs. Item 3B is our Pledge of Allegiance. Would anyone like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening? All right, seeing none, I will do it. Let's get everyone muted and please rise. Place your hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item 3C is the adoption of tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so a motion by Christina, a second by Robert. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Trustee Gallagher,
Aye.
trustee Aerosmith,
Aye.
trustee Brown,
Aye.
trustee Goitia,
Aye.
and trustee Verich.
Aye.
All right, with a 5-0 vote, it passes. If we could get the flag down, that'd be great. Thank you. And we'll move into item 4A, public comments. The board welcomes comments from the public. If you'd like to make a comment, please fill out the digital blue card, which is located on our website and on the agenda on board docs. If the item is on the agenda, you will comment at this time. You'll be called on to comment when if not, you'll be called on when your item is reached on the agenda. Doing this a little bit out of order. Provisions of the California Brown Act preclude any action being taken on any item that does not appear on tonight's posted agenda for action. Oral presentations and communications to the board are limited to 3 minutes per person and 20 minutes per topic. I'm checking our digital blue cards really quick. And we do not have any this evening. So we will close public comments and move on to item 5A, which is our fourth reading of board policy 6154, the homework and makeup work policy. I think our student board members will take it from here.
Yeah, thank you. We do not have a presentation tonight, but we just have a couple quick words we wanted to say before we started. Since last meeting, we've made the suggested changes per the direction of the board. We also met with Trustee Brown to ensure that all the feedback is now contained in the policy and that it fits the standard policy format.
Yeah, and we just wanted to give you a brief reminder to the 4 reasons why we decided to edit the policy in the first place. So first, we wanted to alleviate the amount of stress for students. Second, we wanted to provide more opportunities for students to take honors, AP, and IB classes. Third, we wanted for there to be a reasonable limit on homework being assigned. And we wanted to eliminate or decrease the amount of homework over breaks.
We would like to present this policy for its 4th and hopefully final read. We do have one small edit that got in the way of it. Got mixed up when we kind of transferred it to a few people. But where it says on the 5th paragraph, the superintendent is authorized to waive this requirement due to different schedules that may arise. After the words may arise, it should say because of. Those 2 words should be added in there. I think it just got deleted at one point, but we don't. It's really just a small little grammar thing. So, yeah,
and we hope that this draft now meets your criteria, and we look forward to hearing your feedback.
Well, I will start. I'm very impressed. I'm very proud of the work that our student board members have done on this throughout. They've kept the reason why this is important. This is an important change to make in front of us. And I think that, I won't, never mind. I'm not going to tell that story. But I think that it shows a lot of perseverance on your behalf. You've presented this now 4 times. You've gotten a lot of feedback. You've gone back and talked to lots of people, and incorporated a lot of feedback and continue to incorporate feedback and things like that. But the fact that you're still here, ready to present this, and keeping the important reason of why this is important in front of us, I hope you learned a lot from this process. And I will be supporting the approval of this revision tonight.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor by me, seconded by Christina. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I just want to bring up one thing. Our board policy on student board members allows student board members to take preferential votes before the board actually votes on something. And I think that with all the work that these board members have done on this policy, we should allow them to cast their preferential votes. This is just a formal expression of their opinion to be captured in the minutes of the meeting.
Awesome. Yeah, we can definitely do that. And will. So, but then let's get all the other conversation questions and then we'll do it when
You
we
need
vote.
the motion to specifically say to add those 2 words. Is that like a friendly amendment, or are we taking it?
Yeah, sorry. The motion I made was adding those 2 words.
I'll second that one.
Okay, cool.
Well, I am supportive. I think all of the work that you've done has been really incredible, not just because you're students, but at all levels. Just the amount of input that you've been and research, and yeah, I'm ready to approve. I had that one little grammar thing and you already took care of it. So yeah, I am happy to support, not just because you worked on it, although that is tremendous, obviously. But really, this is not just like a project. This is an actual policy. And I do genuinely believe in the purpose behind it. And I was able to be part of a lot of those conversations. And so I know how much rich discussion has come out of it. And I know that there's still going to be a lot more discussion moving forward. And I think that, you know, in times of agreement and disagreement, when we get people that are passionate about different things, trying to figure out what's best for students, I think in the long run, we'll all be better off for it. So I'll close there.
Thank you. It appears that the policy says that it would go into effect as soon as it's adopted. And I'm concerned that we had agreement with department heads, principals, and some teachers that were involved in this process, that it would be something we'd work towards for the following year. So unless I've missed something, I can't support this tonight for that reason alone. I'd love to talk about that as a prospect, only because that's what we heard was agreed upon. And I think even the students would tell you that they agreed to that they were working towards that they were part of the working group by making it effective in January, or now effectively, could really switch it up and make a problem for future work. I think we heard that principals, administration, if it were in place for the 2021 school year, would tell their teachers to begin to work towards, start to plan with that, start to be a part of what they do. And then obviously, as we work through that, we may find some things that we need to rework a little bit, as we did in the grading policy. So I can't support it as it's written now.
So
But thank you for your work,
At
everybody.
our last board meeting, there were 2 board members who said implement now, and there was not a third. So that failed. So it was my understanding that it would start in January.
So since I worked with these guys to policyize the document, let me explain why it looks like what it looks like. Our policy documents and the bodies of our policies do not say effective this, effective that. They say this is when it was adopted and this is when it was revised. The implementation of the policy falls to the superintendent. And so how the superintendent and his team is going to implement this is not for us to be that prescriptive on, right? Other than to say, this is what we've agreed to in terms of what the policy shall be, and go make it so. So if Dr. Bravo determines that an AR is required as part of the rollout, then he would schedule time to develop that AR with the appropriate level of engagement from whomever team members need to be part of that AR. But all we're doing tonight is basically saying, yeah, this is going to be the policy, and how it gets, it's just like any other policy that we pass. When we pass all those, policies that we pass every, month, the revision is when it's revised, and how it's implemented is really up to the superintendent and team to manage for us. So I understand where the confusion comes from, but in terms of standard operating procedure of a board policy, I think what's presented tonight falls within that standard operating procedure.
Okay.
And I think we've been very clear with the superintendent in terms of the expectations for when implementation would be. And you said
Dr. Bravo, can I ask that question? If the board does pass this tonight without any additional language, what would be your plan in terms of timeline for implementation?
I would have to be thinking about that if you passed it. I can say I wouldn't expect there to be any immediate, as of tomorrow, change in practice. But in terms of, I'd be making people aware that it was now board policy and urging people to do the best they can to immediately honor the limits, because I do think they're very reasonable. And as I mentioned at the last board meeting, these limits actually go beyond the limits that would be in place if we were using the NEA PTA 10-minute rule of 10 minutes per grade level. But in terms of longer term expectations, that's something that I would have to figure out. I cannot tell you I know absolutely today what that would be.
Do you anticipate it would be next semester?
It could be. I mean, I think that because this board is very shortly going to consider the question as to whether or not we have any hybrid programs going on in the second semester. That's just an additional factor to factor in.
If this were to fail, I could make a motion to support implementation of the winter break, the spring break, the summer break pieces to it, and then perhaps bring it back to us in the fall with some, or the summer perhaps, with some opportunity to look at the rest of the program and fall more into line with what these students worked with the teachers and department heads with. We could then keep them from necessarily causing something to go back on their word that I think they're probably pretty well, I don't think they're worried about it. But I think that they're very ethical people. And I think this whole thing came to us with that opportunity. So with this, I'm concerned. And so if this were to fail, I could make a motion to get those pieces in play, and hopefully the teachers could work with that and the administration to start to plan the rest of their school year this year with no homework over the breaks.
I would be very concerned about a motion like that, Robert, because I think that is an example of the board being way more prescriptive than we're supposed to be. We adopt policies and the superintendent implements them. And I wouldn't want to override the superintendent's judgment in how to manage the district and the implementation of this policy. And I appreciate the fact that we kind of introduced and I think I'll take credit for this. I think I introduced the red herring in one of the conversations for the students of how is this going to be implemented? And it's really not for the students to say how it's going to be implemented. They were drafting a revision to the policy, and it is solely up to the superintendent and the superintendent's cabinet and team to ensure that the policies are implemented and all that other stuff. So I appreciate the fact that in the conversations, the conversations were about, full implementation beginning next year. But, when? July 1st, 2021, is that the date? Is it even right to put an expectation of full implementation? I mean, that was one of the issues that we had with the grading policy. We got too prescriptive with that. So I think it's incredibly important for us to, what's the expression you use, Robert? Not crash the helicopter, and let Bob implement the policy change.
So let me try this. So last week there was a discussion, and 3 board members did not want this to start until the beginning of the next academic school year, and 2 wanted to start at the beginning of next semester. Who were those people? Can you remind? I don't remember how that.
I'm next year.
You're next year. Who? I think I was next year. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I was next year.
You think? You can't remember?
So-
Is it that important to you?
So for me, I actually don't think this should start in the middle of a school year, and that was important to me. I made the motion assuming that this would not start until the beginning of next school year. Now I'm hearing from Dr. Bravo that might not be the case, so I'll withdraw my motion.
The Stacy, to your point about being too prescriptive about what Dr. Bravo should be doing, that's not what I'm proposing. I'm proposing that our board policy be about homework over vacation breaks. And that's it. So that would be my motion. So the other parts that are in this are not going to be part of our board policy. I'm not telling him what to do. I'm telling him these are the pieces that I think we should take a look at.
But
now.
that's not the revision that's in front of us, Robert. We would have to go back and revise the draft that.
Okay. Okay.
So
I don't think the students expected this to be something that would take place immediately. I don't think the teachers did. I don't think the principal did. And I don't think at least 3 board members did, including 3 minutes ago. So can I suggest you withdrawn your motion, Kalen? I'll make a motion then.
Yeah, I already withdrew it.
Okay, so I'm going to move to approve the revision of the policy with the direction to the superintendent that full implementation of the policy is not expected until the 2021, is that right? 2021, 2022 school year.
I'll second that.
All right, so a motion by Stacy, second by Christina. Can I ask a question, a clarifying question, Stacy?
Sure.
Is not expected to be so in that we are expecting full implementation in that school year, or it starts in that school year?
That it's not expected until that school year, just like that.
Cool.
So that gives them he can say we're ready July 1st, or we're ready for second semester of 21, 20, whatever.
One thing your motion is missing is the because of edit. But
Oh, as amended.
Yes, there we go.
I'm in support of that.
I'll still second with the 2 words, what Stacy said.
Cool.
And I don't know how we went from just a few minutes ago, we can't crash land the helicopter and give Bob specific direction. And then we removed the motion and then crash landed the helicopter and gave prescriptive information. So I still won't be supporting it.
Okay.
Linda, do you have any thoughts?
At this point, it'd be safe to say that I'm confused, but no, the prescriptive information is just that it will start sometime after the first of the year, correct?
First of the school year. It will be,
At some point after January 1.
No.
That doesn't seem
school year, 2021, 2020 to 2022 school year.
Sometime after next fall.
Oh, after next fall. Wow.
No.
Which
July
is the part
1st.
Stacy said I couldn't do with my motion.
All right. Well, hold on. We have a motion on the floor. So let's make sure Linda has a.
Could we go back to just passing the policy, leaving it to the discretion of the superintendent when the best time would be to implement? Because he writes the AR.
Yeah, that is not the motion on the floor. So the motion on the floor.
I get that.
You can't start implementing it until the beginning of next school year.
Would that count summer of next school year?
Yes. I don't know. Stacy?
No, it would not, based
Sure.
on the motion.
Would it, if it counts the summer homework part, that's, just leave it at that. I don't even want to worry about next semester. That's, I think, what Chitanjali and I would like, because we do think the summer homework would count as that next school year.
Yeah, the day it's due is in that school year. So
I don't want to start breaking it up into pieces. I think it needs to go back to the discretion of the superintendent who writes the AR.
Well, that's not what the motion is. So, is everybody clear? Is everybody ready to vote?
Yeah, I move to call the question. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, so there's a motion to call the question, which means we're voting on if we're going to vote. It's been seconded by Stacy. Is there any discussion on if we want to vote?
No.
Okay, roll call. Voting yes means that you want to vote now. Voting no means you still want to talk about it.
And Mr. President, should I start with the preferential vote of the student trustees?
Not on this one. Not on this one.
Okay. Trustee Gallagher,
Aye.
Trustee Aerosmith,
Aye.
Trustee Brown,
Aye.
Trustee Goitia,
No.
Trustee Verich.
No.
Okay, so the 3-2 vote, we are now voting. We'll start with preferential votes.
Trustee Anderson,
Aye.
Trustee Jane,
aye.
Trustee Gallagher,
Aye.
Trustee Aerosmith,
Aye.
Trustee Brown,
Aye.
Trustee Goitia,
Aye.
Trustee Verich.
No.
Okay, so with the 4-1 vote, the motion passes and we have a new policy. Congratulations.
Great job, guys.
Yeah.
Democracy in action.
Well done.
How long was that? Was what, a 12-month process?
Yeah, we started it last November, so almost.
It's amazing. It's amazing. You need to text Emily.
Yep, I'm gonna do that right now, actually.
Okay, cool. All right, so that concludes 5A. Thank you all so much. You are, well, stick around if you want. You don't have to. We're gonna move into the board workshop portion. And board, as a reminder, we have a couple things that we're covering tonight, and we talked about this at our last meeting. I lost my tab that I was going to pull up to talk about it, but the first part is we're talking about Dr. Bravo wanted to check in around some of the benchmarks and the playbook that they've come up with for the fall, just to kind of get a temperature check of what we think. And then we're going to move into the planning the board workshops for 2021 portion of it. So Dr. Bravo, whenever you're ready, do you have screen share ability?
Yes, I do.
Okay, great.
So trustees, I shared this document with you previously via email and just a normal communication, but I'm sharing it on the screen now so that you don't have to go search for it if you would prefer not to. So each year I get together with district administrators and the principals, and we develop what we call the playbook. It's nothing special about the term. It's just what we choose to call it. And what this represents is something that we ask ourselves as a team of administrators. What is it? Usually we do these on a yearly basis. So it's a playbook for the year. But because of COVID and unknowns about how long we are going to be in any particular education model before switching, we decided to focus just on a fall semester. So have a half year playbook this time. And what we as administrators do is we sit down together and we talk about, well, what are some things that if we didn't get done within the span of this playbook, usually a year, but in this case semester, that if we didn't get done or help see get done, that we would regret. Now, that list is extremely long. It's very easy for us to come up with things that we would regret, but we also realize that, well, let's try and choose three of them, because we can't necessarily monitor everything with the same level of attention. So these are the three that, again, my district administrators, along with the principals, arrived at, that we feel that as a leadership, as a administrative team, the management team, that we should be focusing on. So I shared this with you previously, but what I just wanted to give an opportunity for you to ask questions about it and invite you perhaps to be thinking about this as you think about the next iteration of the strategic plan, to think about or invite you to consider quantifiable time-bound goals like this as part of the next strategic plan. So the current strategic plan focuses on, I think, on mission, on vision, on values, but does not necessarily contain time-bound goals. So the first one in our playbook, the objective was to remove systemic barriers to student success. And that has been a topic of a lot of discussion this year in 2020. And so the metric that we chose to shoot for was that by November 20, the leadership team, including cabinet and principals. Now in this context, leadership team doesn't mean the board and I. This refers more to, again, management administration. Will identify and revise or eliminate at least one policy that creates systemic barriers for student success. I personally think that the homework policy is an example of something that tries to eliminate barriers to success, just as an example. Then the second objective that we had was to see that the instructional program provides instruction that's on grade level standard and engages students. And this is a carryover actually of prior years. This is one of the objectives for prior year. And we felt more now than ever that this was especially important, because as much as it might not feel like it, instructional minutes are less this year for students than it was prior. And so we thought that now more than ever, we need to make sure that the program dedicates its time to those things that are grade level essential standards. And so we we picked a time period gave ourselves a deadline by December 20, that we wanted to increase the percent of district-wide math and ELA lessons that included standards aligned tasks by 5%. This is against a sampling that we took in spring 2020. Now, is the sampling, it's a snapshot. It was a snapshot, like one point in time. Does it mean that 63% is actually like a magic number, or that's exactly what would have been true for all of last year? No, this was a snapshot of a week. That 63% was based on 1 week of observations. Increase the percent of teachers who report they'd had a coaching conversation with the administrator after the classroom visit or learning management system review by 5%. And some of these things, we are already seeing the difficulty of achieving some of the things that we set out to do. But nonetheless, I think that it helps give us direction to make these kinds of goals. So specifically, the time to do coaching conversations, it really is harder now, I think, than ever, because administrators on campus, they don't get those sort of like, oh, I was walking by the copy machine at the same time, you know, the teacher was there. And so we had a quick 30-second talk about what I noticed when I came for a visit. Those opportunities aren't there. So, you know, we're struggling with actually making this target. We've talked today, actually, the principals and I, about altering this, that it might not be a coaching conversation. It could be or a note. Then objective 3 was to target support for priority students to navigate distance learning and pass foundational courses. So by January 15th, recover 5% of students identified as chronically absent, meaning those students who are absent 10% or more of the school days at the end of each grading period, that we would recover, meaning get them being absent less than that 10%. That we increase by 5% the passing rate for students who at the end of first grading period are not passing foundational courses with the C or better. And you have to read the small print where we have the definition of what we meant by foundational courses. These are courses just that, you know, high numbers of students take. They're somewhat, you know, gateway. Like if you're going to graduate from high school, you're probably taking most of these courses, and or the ELD 1 or 2. So from the first 6-week grading period, we wanted to, whatever those passage rates were in these classes, we wanted to increase those by 5%. We want to increase passing for everybody. And I know that sometimes that is the concern, that when you set quantifiable targets, that it can feel like, well, wait, but what about all the other goals we have? It doesn't mean those goals aren't there, they still are. But but we felt like we wanted to elevate these ones especially. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have about these, and any other kind of feedback you might have about it.
Yeah, and before we get to questions and stuff, Bob, can you talk about, if I'm a parent watching this meeting for the first time and expecting to hear about COVID and fall and planning, can you talk about why this isn't on this and kind of what this represents on top of that?
Yes, thank you. One of the things, and when I met with the principals today, one of the things that we talked about is that we have 2 tasks, neither of which we can give second best effort on. We have to give first best effort on both. And one is planning for the second semester. And insofar as possible, and with your approval, being able to potentially have some in-person learning happening. So we have to do all the preparation work that we've been doing, like ordering sneeze guards for desks and those kinds of things. Those things are happening right now. And that's a given. But at the same time, we also have responsibility to ensure that the program that we're offering right here and now is the best program that it can be. So when we made, that's why we made this as just the fall playbook. And when we made it, we did discuss, well, should we call an objective out just as being, have great preparation for second semester? And we talked about that, but we also felt that's a given. That's, there isn't an option about that. And so we wanted to focus this just on what's happening now.
Okay, awesome. Well, first, maybe we can start with, do you have any clarifying questions, things you didn't understand, things you want explained a little bit more before jumping into thoughts from the board? Cool. Oh, Linda.
No, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I saw you talking. All right, cool. Then maybe we can go back to board view, John, and then, yeah, any thoughts? I can kick us off.
So yes, I do have a question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Objective 2, increase percent of district-wide math and ELA lessons that include standards aligned tasks. I'm not quite, okay. I'm going to make an assumption here that before distance learning, all of the tasks were standards aligned, and now with no?
Not necessarily.
And
it's a great question though, because
why not?
Well, because sometimes, and it's not uncommon, that in a classroom as a teacher, and I know I did when I was teaching, I might be working with content that is grade level appropriate content. So like when I taught world history, I might have been teaching about the same era in world history that the California social studies framework wanted me to. But often when you drill down farther into the standards or what's expected of students, just hitting that particular piece of content is not the same though as actually making sure that the task the student is asked to do is grade level. So
give an example.
Yeah, I was going to say, so for example, right, I could, let's say I taught a whole lesson sort of comparing, contrasting Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin. And it was mostly a lecture. And that's fine. That's, in terms of, is that appropriate to the course objective? Yes, it is. But what do I ask the students to do? What do I absolutely expect them to do? And am I asking them to just copy? Like, am I putting a PowerPoint up and just asking them to copy it verbatim? Because if that's the task, that task isn't a grade level task. If the task is to take notes and from those notes write an essay, like a comparison contrast essay, now I'm coming closer to what is a grade level task. And is every task going to be strictly grade level? No, I don't think so. I don't think it's possible that every task is, but you would want to see, because to do that, I think you would most probably lose, some of the things you do as a teacher to have a positive classroom community, just to be sort of a task master about everything. But you would want to see the majority of tasks being, really grade level tasks. If you look at the Common Core state standards, especially, if you take a look at the standards around writing and what is considered to be a grade level piece of writing, it is often surprising, I think, for people when they look at that appendix, where it actually has sample student writing, and then it identifies that this is a sample of 10th grade writing, or this is a sample of 11th grade. The proficiency expected is, I think, much higher than when I was in high school.
Yeah. To kind of put that in maybe more lay terms. Yeah, I remember very well looking at the California state standards for seniors for literature, and they were so out of touch with the reality of where our students were at that point, that reaching grade level was difficult. I think that a good example of that would be when I wanted to teach compare and contrast and writing about two pieces of literature and doing it as compare and contrast. I started by doing a compare and contrast lesson where they compared and contrast Oreo and Hydrox cookies, which I passed out, and I taught them the structure of compare and contrast. That would have been a below grade level task, preparatory to doing the at grade or even above grade level task of comparing the two novels we were working with. So, okay, I get it.
That's why I say
Yeah.
that we would never, I don't think we would expect that like 100% of every task a student is going to do is grade level, because there could be tasks that are, you know, stair stepping towards.
We have to meet them where they are. Yeah.
Yes.
And try to get them there.
Mhm.
Okay.
Kaylin, just to step back, can you frame kind of what this part of our evening is in relation to our overall goals for tonight?
Yeah, so this is completely disconnected from anything else we're doing tonight. This came up at our September 3rd meeting, or whatever that meeting was in early September, talking about the board workshop, and there was a desire from Dr. Bravo and the board to kind of look at something like a playbook and have an opportunity to say, hey, yeah, this is good. Here's some thoughts. I don't think that it is anticipated that this takes more than 30 minutes. But if people do have any glaring thoughts or areas of disagreement or areas of things to think about, it's feedback time for Dr. Bravo. Bob, Superintendent Bravo, is that correct?
Well, I would say again, I think the idea was just to make the invitation, to plant the idea for you that as you consider the next iteration strategic plan, to think about the inclusion of, you know, time bound, sometimes they call them SMART goals, right? Something that's time bound, it's quantifiable, just really to make that invitation to you as trustees. It's take it or leave it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's a good point, Bob. First of all, this isn't the only playbook that that Bob and the leadership team have put in place since we passed the strategic plan back in, I think it was May of 2018. I think you make playbooks for academic years and playbooks for semesters and things like that. And it's basically your interpretation of that strategic, and I'm going to call it a strategic vision at this point, because it really is more of a framework at this point, because it is missing some of those more specific time-bound goals and the metrics by which we're going to measure success and things like that. So the thing that I think, if we share these things publicly, beyond having this be kind of like an internal document for you to manage the district with, I would be looking for more context and alignment back to the strategic vision. So for example, the one that we've just been talking about standards-based instruction, it ties back to the strategic anchor of mastery, right? Promote instruction and learning that leads to mastery. And at least I think that's what it ties back to. And then always giving the why is this important context when we're communicating with parents, with community members, and even with students. You know, two trains leave. Why is it important to, I'm never going to use trigonometry again in my life. Why is this important? It's kind of that always giving the context of, why we're doing this. So I think you have a very good playbook. On top of all the things are just kind of like the must-haves anyway. And then my second question really is, how are you tracking towards some of those goals in the playbook?
That's a great question. Some of them are much easier to track than others. When you talk about at least the outcome, it's easy to track the outcome. Like if you take a look at attendance and, did we recapture 5% of those chronic absentees to, our student information system can tell us that. Now, some of them are harder. So like taking a look at like student tasks and, are they grade level, are they on grade level standard or not? That one takes a little bit more work. It's not already in any student information system. So with that, we would monitor that and have plans to monitor that by basically setting aside a period of time like we did in the spring. It was just before COVID, but we took a week in time where we deployed folks to go visit classes at each of the English language arts and math classes at each school, just to see every teacher at least one time. And then really just, take a record, was the task a grade level task or not? No judgment with it, because as I mentioned, they're not all going to be. But to just take that, like take it for what it is. This is a data point, and we would go and do something similar this fall.
So
and then beyond the measurement, then what we did last year, we have a time where we have what we call a performance dialogue with the principals, where each principal, we look at their school's progress towards these and just talk about, well, what worked? Like, did you make the progress that we were all hoping for? And if you did, why do you think you did? And if you didn't, why don't you think you did? And it's not meant to embarrass anybody per se, but really just so that they can learn from each other, and we would do check-ins before that performance dialogue, just like to talk about the inputs. So at your site, what are you doing to try and meet this goal? And then culminating then in sort of the after action review.
So I think I understand what you're saying. And then just the only other thing, two questions. How you doing on having a policy in the first objective? Are you going to revise or eliminate a policy before the end of November?
I think after your vote today, absolutely.
Okay, does that count? No, I'm sorry. Okay.
And then,
and then, back to kind of the next steps in the strategic planning process for as we move forward, all of the ways that you check in and track the progress to your playbook and the rich conversations that are being driven about instruction and performance and achievement and all that other stuff. That's all fine. I think that's too granular a level to report back at the board level. So one of the things we should be talking about is, how does this all roll up into a dashboard? KPIs, key performance indicators. of how we're doing on executing on our strategic initiatives. So that's another really important aspect, I think, of discussion for not at the tactical level where you're implementing, but up at the strategic level at the board of how we're monitoring. There's going to be a difference in level of metrics and what measure, you know, and things like that. That's all I have.
Cool. So my quick thoughts, I think, I had a similar thought to Stacy. Like this is a really good internal document, right? This isn't something I'd, you know, put all over. I think it could use work if it's like a super public document that we're like emailing out to parents and stuff, right? But I think it works really well for like what its actual purpose. I think what this tells me is a couple things, right? I think it's evidence that we have a superintendent who plans, one who's data driven, one who knows how to hold conversations and prioritize out of all the trillions of different things. What are the three that he wants staff and his cabinet and principals to work on? You can tell it involves other people, it involves, and I think getting to a decision of like, there's probably 10 to 15 things that could be on this, right? That are actually really important. But all the things on here are truly important to the world that we live in which students are distance learning. They address real problems. To me, that's a good sign. My only feedback would be on that final third one, right? Like getting 5% of kids back to class, it seems a little, like 1 out of 20 seems a little low, but I'm not in those conversations, right? So I don't know. But to the extent that the board can help beef numbers up with resources or whatever it is, I'm personally willing to get there. But I don't know if that's my place. So taking a step back to like the proper level, I think this shows that you're doing a good job. The principals are doing a good job. The cabinet, keep it going.
These goals make sense to me. I think what matters most, well, I was going to say that I care more about the goals actually being achieved than what they are themselves, but that's not completely true. I do think that the actual 3 goals that are identified do matter, and it matters which ones are prioritized. And I think, you know, I had a similar reaction to 5%, but I would much rather have us actually make progress and get that 5% and then go for the next 5. My main thought here is that I just want to be able to see the data once it comes back. And then those conversations about, okay, now what, you know, so what? Okay, now we're here, now what, you know, and being able to reflect on the why. That's really all I have at this point.
I appreciate those comments, and in part I wanted to have this discussion with you all just because I feel like there have times you have reflected with me that, you know, we'd like to hear more sort of report backs around different kind of initiatives, you know, that we have, you know, maybe voted for or talked about at the board level. And I think that, you know, that setting particular SMART goals for those initiatives out front helps my team think about how we can give you those updates.
Linda, Robert, you all got anything?
Yeah, like Christina, when I first thought 5% was a low bar, but when you're trying to move anything off the dime, that gets it going, and it can be remarkably hard to take that first step, you know, and get it in motion.
I think Stacy, you came off mute. You got anything else?
I didn't need to add anything, Kaylin. Thank you for asking.
Cool. Dr. Barber, any other questions for the board on this topic?
No.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for presenting that. Board, how you feeling? Need a break between the two completely different things on this agenda? Okay, I've seen someone give a thumbs up. So let's go and take like a 5-minute break. Come back around 7:11. All right. All right, as board members start to come back, if you want to turn your cameras on, we'll get going.
Back.
All right. I think Dr. Bravo is talking to his team. They may let some of them off. So we can go ahead and get started, I think. All right, cool. So board and public, this is the portion of the meeting where we're moving into part 2, which is charting out our timeline for the 2021 board workshops. Stacy and Linda's initial resolution, which became the board's resolution, talked about spending some very intentional time in 2021 in a few different areas. Last week, we talked about having kind of 3 different focus areas, one around board development. One is board development, but specifically with diversity, equity, and inclusion training. And then the third is, we have an updated strategic plan due by the end of next calendar year. And so tonight, talking about the sequencing and breaking up the work, if I could just start with a couple pieces of framing potentially that might help drive the conversation. We have to have, or we're going to have 4 board workshops, which I think are separate from any other business. So this would not overlap with a budget workshop, for example, right? Because there's too much to cram into one day. This is focus time. Maybe there's like a contract or something that gets added during the beginning or something, but for the most part, this is focus time for us as a board. That's the way I read it. I see some nodding, so hopefully that's what people think. One thing we could do is we could tonight decide who's going to kind of lead, 1 or 2 board members to lead in these areas and bring a plan to the board to discuss maybe at our December, the final meeting in December, to kind of say, hey, here's kind of what a plan could look like. Here's how it would be spaced out across different meetings. But I don't know, what are y'all thoughts? So my initial thoughts as someone's talking is, I thought there might be a world in which 2 board members take on board development, maybe 1 or 2 take on diversity, equity, inclusion training, and maybe 1 or 2 take on like the strategic planning timeline, right? Now the people in charge of these aren't like setting everything in stone and anything like that. It's just to propose a straw man or like a template of what it could look like, and then the board's going to have to agree on all of it to go through. I have people in mind for different ones if you want to hear what those are, or if people want to, they're very passionate about one or the other.
Okay, I want to weigh in on this, but I'm distracted. I need to get up and put something behind me. Our last board meeting was what, like 6 hours?
Mm-hmm.
I went out the very next day and bought a new office chair, and I've made a huge mistake. This one's worse. So I need to get something to put behind me, and then I can think.
Cool. You get that lumbar support.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I gave the old one away.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, shouldn't have done that.
Linda, I have
Ah.
Linda, I have 12 chairs we're going to donate if you want to come see them. We're remodeling the office in the next couple of weeks. So
Yeah, I might
office
do that.
chairs, come see them.
Okay, I might do that. All right, so
Is that an open invitation, Robert?
After Linda has hers, you can have yours, and then anybody next. I keep everybody in order. I don't want you to take the one Linda wants.
so
They're almost all the same, by the way.
so the first session that we should do should probably be the calendar, unless we're doing that this evening. I'm a little confused. Is that something we're going to try?
Yeah, sorry. So let's take a step back. Tonight, we're not actually doing anything. Tonight, we are planning who is going to lead.
Well, that's a waste. We should do something.
Well, I'm sorry. It's a little. It's an exaggeration. We're not doing the work tonight. We are
Planning the work tonight.
planning the work that we will do
All
intensively
right,
in 2021.
We're
So
planning.
all right.
board
Then
development and
let's say
updated governance calendar.
The work probably should begin with the governance calendar. That seems logical to me, because
And I think
every
this
year
is
we talk
probably,
about it, and then we're halfway through the year before we ever think about doing something.
And this is probably the best place to insert this. The reason we have a meeting to talk about the meetings is because we're not allowed to meet outside of a public meeting. So this is where this work has to be done. And so if you're one of the two people watching right now, I just wanted you to know that's what happens in the grinding wheels of board school.
Do we have two
School board.
students right now? Great.
Can you tell us what your ideas are?
Yeah, so here's my thought.
Sounds great.
I think the two board members that I've heard either have a passion around board development or have led us through it before are Stacy and Linda. So I thought maybe they could bring a plan or take the lead on that. For diversity, equity, inclusion training, I know you had mentioned in one of our previous meetings that you knew people who were really good trainers and have some of those connections. And so I thought that might be a place that you could.
You as in me?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Christina. And then I thought I could take on the strategic planning aspect and team up with Robert, because I think in seeing how Moreland does it, I think there's probably a lot we could learn from how they've done it in the past. And then that would give everyone kind of a place to go and run, and then bring it back together and plot it out over those 4 meetings. But that's just one person's thoughts that I had on my own. I was trying to avoid bringing that up, but then no one was really talking, so.
Works for me.
So, in terms of planning the plan, I think that we need to have a document that we, for the plan, and let's call it a governance calendar. Okay. So that's going to be our output. That's going to be our work product. Or that's my recommendation, that would be our work product for this, is that we would have a governance calendar that we would be working on and preparing for the organizational meeting, because at the organizational meeting is when we're going to say, here's when we're going to have and I think the resolution calls these governance workshops, right? Where we're just focusing on the governance parts of our role. So that'd be my first recommendation, is just let's start putting a governance calendar together. And then and we don't have to say, if we decide at the organizational meeting, if we come up with some dates for these governance workshops, we don't have to say, well, this one's going to be board development and this one's going to be strategic plan and all that other stuff. It's, we're just, the idea is start creating the time. And then, if we have to have some additional, and let's just call them study sessions, to accomplish, some of the ways that you might want to build out the strategic plan. So, for example, back in 2018, when we did the plan that's in effect right now, we made it an internal process. It was facilitated. And I think it was 3 special sessions till we got it, the way that we wanted to present it, and got to consensus on the guiding principles and all that kind of stuff. So that would essentially be what the people who are going to step up to kind of own these areas would be working through, is here's we're going to build out and say here's some spaces for us to have some general sessions, and then as we're working on particular things, it might be important for us to have a special session, and it's just going to be because we find a really great unconscious bias training that board members of the governance team wants to take. And so we would set that at a board meeting and say, this is when we're going to do it. Add it into the governance calendar, so we had the full visibility of it, and then work with whomever we work with to deliver those meetings, those sessions and those workshops. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is take our current governance calendar draft that we've had, right? And then each person is going to look at it and be like, okay, I think in these areas, like I'm taking issue A, we need to have it times we can talk about it during these meetings, kind of thing.
Well, I'm going to go back to, I don't think that we have a governance calendar. I've seen, where is that?
If you Google or if you search in your inbox, we have a 2019 governance calendar. We don't have one for this calendar year.
Yeah. So, getting a, here's a governance calendar, and then never having another conversation about it, to me says we don't really have a governance calendar. So, I think that there's some conversation, and this can go under board development, where we have the conversations about what should our governance calendar look like? How is it going to drive the impacts of, having our, I'm just looking it up, having our meetings be more focused on policy versus operational issues, right? Becoming data savvy and things like that. So I still think that we have some work to do to agree on a governance format, to agree on how we view the governance calendar. It could be something that when we get to future agenda items at the end of the meeting, we can pull up the governance calendar and look at what's coming up and say, and use that as the tool to talk about future agenda topics, as opposed to saying, I have a resolution that I want to pass, that I want to bring before the board on whether we should allow chewing gum on campus, right? Those types of things. That'll help keep us focused on our initiatives.
So this was part of the reason that I thought Stacy would be a very good, because we have to have Brown Act buddies, right, to do this. And Stacy clearly has a vision about board development and governance calendar. And so I thought she would be good to be the sole leader or one of two leaders. The reason I thought of you, Linda, is because when you were board president, you went through so much of this.
The protocols handbook and all that.
Yeah, we had such good.
And as far as the governance calendar,
I personally got a lot out of.
Sorry, as far as the governance calendar goes, I used to print them out. And then when we were late with the superintendent's evaluation 2 years in a row, I thought, what's the point of this thing? We're not living by it. And there were items on it, I didn't quite know what they were anyway. So yeah, I'd like one that's a little more meaningful and a little more specific about what we would like to get done, so we can look at it and say, yeah, we did that. Not, well, it was on the calendar, but we were busy.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I'm
comfortable taking that part of it.
I'll work with Linda. If you want to work on that.
That's fine.
Awesome. Okay, so we have two more things: diversity, equity, and inclusion training, or DEI training. Christina, you have thoughts?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that on. Just, try to use the network of folks and put something good together for us. Yeah.
Can we hear from some students as part of the process?
Sure.
Yeah.
And since we've created these equity teams at all the sites, can we, and I think there's like a team, well, I'm not sure how they're formulated, but can we talk to them too and get some of their input on, what type of training might be good for us to look at?
Yes.
And then strategic planning. Are y'all comfortable if Robert and I take that and chart it out?
Yep.
And Christina, going back to yours, you sent out some readings earlier. I don't know that the board is going to all commit to reading like 6 books, but if you have 2, for example, that you think are like musts, and maybe some shorter articles, if you could supply some advanced material for that work, that might be really good.
Got a lot to choose from.
So then if we on December 15th or whatever that meeting is, Linda and Stacy, do you think you could have like a frame of like work with Bob to have a frame of a governance calendar that we can slide stuff in and out of?
I think we can have a draft
Yeah.
for the November 5th meeting to review.
Okay.
I mean, we're just trying to come up with the template of
Yeah.
what a governance calendar should look like and how we're going to think. And then we should lay out what's hard is that school years start in July, but governance years start in January, right? The term starts in January. So it overlays over 2 different school years.
Okay.
When we talk about governance as well, one of the foundational pieces that we had at Moreland was Masters in Governance as kind of a base of knowledge that all of us eventually got to. I mean, it started out, there was only one board member that had it, and that was Lori Berugian, and then Talene Nazarian, then myself, and then it became the norm, including the superintendents. So the 4 superintendents while I was there all had graduated from that as well. And one of the problems is that they typically have these classes either in Sacramento or LA, but not necessarily the Bay Area. So I mention it only because we should pay attention for it if there happens to be one. And certainly if we said we had 5 or 6 people that were going to attend it, that starts to put them in scheduling mode for your area. But if you get together with perhaps our feeder districts, and I'm only bringing it up, it's not a norm. I'm not requiring it, obviously. I just would tell you, it's something where it's like every 4 to 6 weeks, there's a class, and it's a total of 5 classes. And it's chunked into different pieces, budget, Brown Act, governance. So throwing that out there, but as members of CSBA, that's one of their foundational pieces, but there's lots of resources at CSBA as well for us around exactly what we're talking about today.
I did 2 of them back in 2013, 14. The budget one was particularly useful to me, as a beginning board member. They're online now, I think.
Are they? I believe
So
it's probably true. Yeah.
It's a lot easier to do the master in government than when I started 10 years ago. And I didn't do the masters in governance because I never thought I'd be on a school board this long. And Robert, I think it's worth having a deeper conversation on whether or not that's something that we want to do as part of board development, because, to your point, the reason why you do it is so that we all have a mutual interpretation and knowledge base and understanding of what school district governance is about. And that's how you build unity. That's how you build high performance. Traditionally, this board in general has not seen that as a priority. And so I think it's a great idea to talk about whether or not it's worthwhile doing it.
One of the other key pieces to it was when it's in your area, which it always wasn't. Sometimes we had a superintendent flying to LA or going to Sacramento in those particular cases, but you get to meet all of the board members in your area, or many of them. So that was another piece that was pretty good. You had a working relationship with your other boards in the area.
Yeah, it was actually in one of those sessions that I met somebody who knew all about international baccalaureate schools and started talking to me about that. And that was completely new to me at that time. So yeah, the networking aspect is nice. I don't know if we would get that in an online forum or not, but
Yeah, well, it's the same. I know Michelle signed me up for the CSBA conference. Anybody else going?
I am.
Just you and I, Robert. Yeah, they have the sessions have definitely improved, and I definitely, last time I went, I learned a lot. But the networking is, to me, networking to me is always the best part of any conference, and the swag.
Okay, so I want to draw us back to this. So in the so we're gonna look at a governance calendar draft on the 5th. Is it the expectation that Christina, Robert, and I have things to place on that in a sequence by then?
I think the objective for review on the 5th would be to look at the format, to take feedback and basically make a decision as a board if this is the governance calendar that we want to implement. And then that way, in terms of adding things to meetings, right? There's going to be, there's going to be meetings that we go through, and, we're going to get updates on suspension data, right? Suspension adults, and that's going to be the second meeting in May, or, whatever. We're going to have a board workshop. We're going to have the LCAP hearings, all those types of things. So Bob can start populating them, and individually we can be working, Spoken Hub, we can be working with populating the governance calendar within our, what we're assigned to. And then we can just be reviewing it at every meeting after that.
Okay, so you're going to bring us a thing on the 5th. We're just going to talk about the format, not the content. And then we're going to fill the content in at a later date.
We're going to, it'll become a living document that I think, because of the Brown Act, we would have to, and because of Bob's role as secretary of the board, we would have to rely on Bob to keep active and be able to take input from all 5 of us with our focus groups, right? And then we can build into our meetings, place in the, and my recommendation would be during future planning, we can pull up the governance calendar and see what's coming up, and see if somebody wants to add things to the governance calendar, and we can together, do that, because it'd be agendized under future planning.
Got it. Okay. Is there anything else we need to do tonight? Dr. Bravo, do you have any thoughts as a member of the governance team? Sorry, that was very board dominant, and I just realized that. Do you have any ideas or thoughts?
That's the way I was hoping it would be.
Cool. Okay.
Can we talk? So I'm just looking at the draft agenda here. So I think we've kind of talked through a lot of these points. Do you have any thoughts to share on how you want to go about updating the strategic plan? And no is a fine enough answer, but
yeah, I think what Robert and I can do is talk outside, and bring that to the next one. as like a starting point for the discussion. Because I think right now it's just, I don't know if it would be.
Okay.
Yeah. Our strategic plan might look a little different based on how our reopening phases look. In other words, it might be a good year to have a 2-year strategic plan instead of a 3-year, and tailor it to the unique circumstance in which we find ourselves.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
looking for a motion, or are we still?
Yeah, well, yeah, if people are ready, if there's a motion to adjourn.
I will move to adjourn.
I will second that.
All right, so motion by Christina, second by Stacy. Any discussion? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Trustee Gallagher,
Aye.
trustee Aerosmith,
Aye.
trustee Brown,
Aye.
trustee Goitia,
Aye.
trustee Verich.
Okay.
All right, the ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you, everyone, and talk to y'all.
Yep. See you at next week's meeting,
Yeah, see you next week.
every week.
Wait,
From now on.
next week's
No,
meeting.
there's no meeting. It's like the
Don't
one.
do that. I am so confused. I had a
There is
calendar
no- I
invite
already
somewhere.
checked. There is no
We-
meeting next week.
We have met every week in October, and we're gonna skip the one right before Halloween.
Yeah.
Now what am I gonna do with my costume? You guys are killing me.
Bye.